So originally I wasn't going to film another video, but I wanted to start tweeting about Kill the Lights because I'm reading the webtoon. And it turns out I had like way too much to say. So I was like, okay, I'll make a video and I'll talk about things in here. So Kill the Lights is a Korean novel, web novel, that got adapted into a webtoon. And I've already read the novel. It's not good. And so I decided to read the webtoon when I learned it existed. It's also not good. So what is it about? So the premise is that there are three guys. Haley Rusk, who is a disgraced child actor, who is openly gay, openly like a drug user, and everybody hates him. Second, there's Noah Ray Carlton, who is like this old money Hollywood heartthrob. It's kind of unclear what he does, but he's very rich and very powerful and very handsome. Everybody loves him. And thirdly and finally, there's Mason Taylor. He's the only one who's not a celebrity. He is a mercenary, and he gets killed in this job gone bad. Mason Taylor transmigrates into Haley Rusk, and over the course of 60 odd chapters, falls in love with Noah Ray Carlton. And you may go, okay, well, this sounds like a standard bad plot. Why is this so bad? Okay. I was about to just start explaining that. I realized I didn't even know where to start. So the first thing is the art. The art's kind of whack. So when I first was like, everyone just looks subtly off. And then you wonder why. And then you realize it's because the artist is trying to draw white people, because all three of these characters are white. And this isn't to say that the artist is bad. I looked at the artists in the other artists' other series, and they looked more like standard, like shiny webtoon characters. These ones, they all have like incredibly arched eyebrows like this. They all have like these heavily lidded eyes like that, and they all have like very trapezoidal noses. So they all just look subtly off because it's not the artist's usual style. So that contributes to it. Secondly, the series is really homophobic. You may have noticed that I introduced Haley Rusk and I mentioned he was openly gay and everybody hated him. And those two things are actually related. This novel delves deep into respectability politics and has a very strong idea of what being gay should look like if you deserve to live. Because the novel is very clear that some people are marked for death. And Haley Rusk is one of them. He's like this ghost to me, and I'm so obsessed with him because here's the thing. He sounds really fucking cool. He's kind of like this like messy, gay, like party kid. And the novel hates that. They hate him for being flamboyant. They hate him for wearing pink. When in real life, he sounds easily the coolest out of those three. And especially because the narrative takes advantage of him being all those things, even as they mock him for it. It's really frustrating to read. Like, here's an example. The series opens with Mason jacking off. Yeah, like you literally see like that whited out lightsaber. And then he transforms into another guy, Haley, who's playing with his ass. And then, boom, he wakes up in the hospital bed, having just transmigrated. This is what I mean, where the idea is having gay sex is something that Haley should be ashamed of, yet it opens with that to titillate it. You're supposed to look down on Haley Rusk for being a slut, even as it takes advantage of the fact that at the beginning of the series, he's the only one who was willing to do any ass play whatsoever. Like, he's literally called, quote, Hollywood's dirtiest bitch, end quote. And yet, like, they open with that. Who is a dirty bitch here? Who? The male lead straight up says early on in the thing that he's better off dead. Like, it's bleak in there. Especially because they really pathologize his drug habit. Now, for the record, I think doing drugs is morally neutral. However, that however is really ominous, sorry. Haley Rusk's drug use is basically coke, some random pills. And I have a hard time believing that even if he was messy in addition to that, like this is uniquely bad in Hollywood. There are plenty of ex-child stars who go on to develop a coke habit and are messy in public, and people are mean to them, yes, but I think we're like kind of getting to the point as a society where we agree that saying someone deserves to die because of that is kind of fucked up, right? Right? I hope. Especially because the male lead is constantly and canonically popping Xanax. Like, okay, granted, I guess the difference is that those are prescribed, but like when it comes to cavalier drug use, like they're both up there, but no one ever says that, like, Noah deserves to die because he uses Xanax or because he has anxiety or whatever. Like, it's very clear that, like, they don't see this as a continuum of drug use, but rather as good drugs and bad drugs. And it's like, look, they could have bonded over the Xannies. Like, whatever. What other details are, to me, strike me as really unfair too? Oh my god! So there's this bit where, like, the male lead Noah is like commenting, and he's like, "Look how detestable he is," and then it cuts to Haley, and he's wearing a pink V-neck, and it's like, it's really regressive. I mean, I know the series is from like easily a decade ago, so maybe they were still wrapped up in metrosexual hate, but I really don't think wearing a pink V-neck is detestable behavior. Like, that's it's like a normal pink V-neck. That's literally all. Because here's what I find really interesting is that the novel wants to be mask for mask, but the novel also wants to have this standard, with this novel, the webtoon too, wants to have this seme for uke dynamic. Um, Jordan recently kind of tweeted something along those lines on like how people should stop kind of getting wrapped up in whether BL accurately depicts gay men because it's kind of in this space done by queer people, often queer women, in this genderless space, and then trying to take BL as a referenda on one or the other is in some way like a doomed project because, and sorry if I mischaracterized your point. This is your point as I remember it. And I was thinking about this because in how does that come into play in a series like this where they're not strictly gay men, except for the part where there is a gay man, Haley, and everybody fucking hates him? Like, for a great example of like this, I think I've been like harping a lot on double standards so far because that's a common theme in this novel for me, is that, like, for instance, Haley has a taint piercing and they all call him a slut for having it, but Mason derives a lot of pleasure from it. So the idea of you know what I mean? Like, you can't get taint pierced, but once you have the taint piercing, you can experience pleasure from it. So ideally, somebody taint pierces you against your will. Like, the gay man is set up as abject, but also the abject becomes the source of pleasure. So it's like this like forbidden pleasure in being gay. It's like being straight but having a gay boyfriend who loves you the most. Like that kind of like YA trope that I know is really common. You know, where like everyone thinks the male lead is gay because he's not interested in women, but he's interested in you. Like, that's what it feels like to me, except it's like the reverse of that. And that's why I think a lot of these series have a really interesting relationship with queerness. Um, anyways, why does the male lead fall for Haley then if he thinks he's so detestable for wearing pink v-necks? So here's the deal. The male lead was kidnapped as a kid, and then he was rescued by Mason the mercenary as just like a spontaneous good deed he did. And Noah imprinted Mason and stalked him for the rest of his life until the point at which Mason dies and transmigrates into Haley. And the male lead Noah is like, well, I guess there's no point in life now. And here's the thing, Mason reminisces early on that he's seen Noah twice in 20 years and spent less than a month total with him. This is totally one-sided. And in many ways, he flashes back and thinks of Noah as a child in those early ones. Anyways, so how do they get together? After an acting job, Haley and Noah meet at Mason's old apartment. And so Haley Mason is going to pick up his shit, and Noah is just checking in on it because he wants to see if Mason is really, really dead. And Noah attacks Haley for being there, like with a gun. Like, he makes a good faith attempt to murder him in broad daylight after home invading. And then he has a panic attack in an elevator that Haley talks him through, and so this is where we learn he has anxiety and claustrophobia, and it's this like only vulnerable for you type mental illness. Anyways, so another detail that people talk about a lot when they talk about this, and when I say people, I mean my friends on Twitter, is the idea that being in a gay body makes you gay. And this is again where you talk about having your cake and eating it too for gayness. Because there's this quote where he's like, could it be that I can't get hard in front of women since the body of a man who is attracted to other men, like the idea that his body is the one with the sexuality and the brain puppeting it doesn't. Like he imagines a woman jerks off successfully, but then he falls asleep. And in that dream, that woman he imagined becomes Noah, who plays with his teeth piercing. So it does kind of suggest that he becomes gay because of this, where he has this theory and then it's repudiated. Oh my god, okay. So other funny details in this novel. Money. Money numbers are all off in this story. What do I mean by that? So the safe that Mason gets killed over on that job gone wrong, where basically like there's this like warlord weapon stealer type guy and he has this safe and he's trying to argue for his life because they were hired to kill him. He's like, if you don't kill me, I'll give you the safe combo. And Mason's like, no, we're hired to kill you, I'm gonna kill you. And everyone else is like, fuck, no, we want the money. So what did they betray Mason over? $50 billion. Okay, $50 billion. What I want to focus on here is the physical improbability of that happening. Later on, they adjusted down to 50 million, which seems a little bit more realistic. But still, you cannot fucking put $50 million in a safe. What do I mean by this? Let's assume all the money is in hundreds. And a bill weighs about a gram. And there's less than 500 grams in a pound, but I'm going to round for ease of mental math. And if there are 500 grams in a pound, so we can fit, what, $50,000 in 1 pound, and there are $50 million. This is 1,000 pounds of money in a single fucking safe. That's not happening. And this is the lowest possible estimate. Okay, other details. Haley is paying off his cousins. And at one point, it comments that he's paying off one of his cousins $4,000 a month, and she has a Ferrari. That's not happening. Even leased, which I guess would be the easiest way to own a Ferrari, you can't lease a Ferrari for $4,000 a month. I mean, obviously, maybe this woman works a job and then spends all of the money like Haley gives her and a sizable portion of her own salary on a Ferrari, but that just seems bizarre to do. So anyways, I'm suggesting that that's on the low end for the amount of money that he should be paying her out. Then there's this thing where he offers to pay his agent $6,000 to work for him for 3 months, and the agent is ecstatic, which seems really low. I would not be ecstatic if somebody offered me $6,000 to work full time for 3 months. I would say, can you at least pay me minimum wage? What else? Other money figures. Haley is offered $50,000 to work 2 days, which is good. I would accept that deal. But then he's like, yeah, I can start my coffee shop business that I'm dreaming of. Or I could even retire off that much. And it's like, you live in LA. You can't do that in LA for $50,000. Later on, they adjusted to $500,000, which seems really high for 2 days of work, but does seem more realistic to start a coffee shop business and or retire off of. But I doubt it's $500,000 for 2 days. Why? Because later on, when Haley gets upgraded from being a side character from the initial 2-day job to being the main character of the whole movie, he only gets paid $1.1 million to headline in this movie. So sure, let's say that $1.1 million is a reasonable amount to be the main character. But that would make $500,000 for 2 days ridiculous, because then they're only paying him for, what, 4 days of work? So no, it has to be $50,000 and $1.1 million. And the final money figure we get is that Mason comments being blown away. When I say Haley and when I say Mason, I'm referring to the same guy, since real Haley is dead. Mason comments that as Mason, he risked his life for $420,000 a year. That seems really high for a mercenary. I looked it up. I did like a cursory Google, and like even working at BlackRock or like some sort of like private military thing, like you're getting paid low 6 figures tops, not mid 6 figures. Like that just seems really high. Soldiers don't get paid that much. $420,000 is a lot of fucking money. And it's unclear where it all goes. They comment on when they're like going to Mason's apartment early on, some random people who show up there to like look for evidence that he made a lot of money, yet he lived in like a lower end apartment. And that's true. And then when Haley tries to get all his shit, he never bothers to like get passwords or anything like that, because surely Mason should have enough saved for him to start his coffee shop, right? Like, it's like very unclear where all the money went, so he's probably not getting paid that much. Anyways, what your takeaway from this should be is that the author doesn't really know how much things cost. Not to be rude. Okay, other details. Oh my god. So when they show how big the male lead's dick is, it is massive. How big is it? Okay, so like it reaches like on here. Here. It's like easily as wide as my deodorant. So let's put that right here. Oh, you can't see that. And as long as, okay, I'm using the ear of my bunny beanie to measure it. So if the base is right there, it reaches. Okay. Well, that seems about what they're showing us from the base of this thing. It's like, it's concerning because he basically reaches underneath his pecs. Like, his torso is longer than mine. So actually, I probably should have adjusted it even longer. It's like really concerning. I really think he should have just like passed out from all the blood like rushing downward. Anyways. By the way, I'm sorry I'm debunking this with facts and logic, being like, actually, the money doesn't add up. But this is what's going through my head when I'm reading this. Anyways, so at the end of season 1 of the webtoon, Noah realizes that Mason is dead, and Haley's change and sudden knowledge of Mason at the exact same time means that Haley likely is Mason. And he starts being very nice to him, like whisking him away on his yacht and shit. So this is like, that's like how they start falling in love. And this all kind of sways Haley Mason's heart. Like he comments, even if I was inside a straight guy's body instead of Haley's, I still would have been tempted. Like, girl, what does that mean? What does that mean? Haley's body's sex drive is really high, which is also something that torments Mason. And this is how the DevCon like sex scenes get their mileage. Because Haley will like say things like, I didn't come in here to do this. And what's fascinating about that to me is that always places the no firmly in the past. Didn't. I did not intend for this. And this really highlights the sort of temporal nature of consent that this leans into. That is, in the past it was a no, in the present it's question mark. But by specifying the no is in the past, you leave a little bit of wiggle room for what's happening right now. That is for Haley's body to respond. Anyways, so after like the StubCon scene, then Noah's like, tell me you're Mason, even if it's not true, or I feel like I'll shoot myself in the head. And then it turns out that there was like a gun underneath his pillow the whole time. So I think he really is serious about shooting himself in the head. So that's kind of manipulative. Well, the male lead is like openly manipulative, so it's like this is nothing new. But I feel like suicide baiting the main character is something that into loving him or being with him or admitting that he's Mason is like okay. The male lead psyche is generally like really tormented. He's what I would call trauma sexual in the sense that all of his phobias and traumas revolve around him being kidnapped when he was like really little, and that early thing I told you about, and this intense relief he felt when he was rescued by Mason. And so it's kind of like this tightrope effect or whatever it's called, where like your heart speeds up and then like you confuse like that for attraction. He comments that he didn't think that he had any sexual desire regarding Mason before, but then he's like, is that even true? I always wanted to see him and touch him. So that's kind of ambiguous, but it's hard to read it as like what's going on in there other than the fact that it's firmly placed in this childhood trauma, which is, I'm not even touching that. Anyways, so Noah gets kidnapped again, this time in relation to the safe drama. And Haley goes after him, and this makes Noah really happy. And actually, I'm sorry, it turns out that there was gold in there. I was going to bring that up earlier, but I thought I could bring that up here. Two things here. One, can't you just explode the safe open if it's like gold or something? Like if you don't have to worry about destroying what's inside, like I understand you can't use force to open it if there's dollar bills inside because you could like burn up all the dollar bills. But if there's literally metal, it's fine, right? Anyways, so let me look up how much gold is per ounce. Gold price per ounce. Okay, so right now it's 2,000, roughly 2,000 for that. So 50 million divided by 2,000 divided by 16. It's still 1,500 easily pounds of gold in there. So I don't know how the hell they're carting this safe around. It's just unrealistic no matter what. Maybe like this is an age where gold is worth even more than it is now. that's a really specific detail to AU. Oh yeah, in regard to trauma sexuality, Noah's like, you killed the person I worshipped. My God, like, man. And the final sex scene and like the ending, because like it kind of ends in those bunch of epilogues. There's this kind of this endless refrain of how slutty the like Haley's body is, and to me it seems like this Descartesian dualism where it's like your body is slutty but your mind isn't. Because that means that you're not horny, of course, because it's your body, it's not your brain. They're two totally separate things. And this also means the top doesn't have to be horny because he's been seduced by your slutty body. So the idea is nobody's horny but you fuck constantly, which is kind of bizarre. So anyways, that's what I think this thing comes down to, is this sort of mind-body separation that seems really key to how we can have becoming gay in a gay body, as well as why we reject Haley's gay mind but not his gay body, and all of this other kind of double standard. To me, it's easily reconciled if we understand the mind and the body as separate entities. And I think this makes sense because it is a transmigration, like novel, webtoon, whatever. So it makes sense that, if you think of mind as something, you go boop, boop, like that, right? So does this mean, therefore, that transmigration novels tend to be more homophobic? No, I just think this author lives in a different reality as seen from the money values, and that's the example I use to explain that. So that's Kill the Lights. That's all I really have to say about it, but I thought I should tell you about some of the things in there because this is really crazy. And I love reading novels not written by American authors that are set in the US because they tend to just like osmosis things from Hollywood. And this is fine. I don't find it problematic or anything, but I always find it interesting as a result. And this was certainly an interesting book. Oh my God, I forgot. Oh, whatever, it's fine. I lost my train of thought. Don't worry about it. Bye.